Well, I think because of the agenda, we should go ahead and move ahead. It's pretty significant. So and look at that. I'm going to give a second for Joan to connect, and that will give us the starting point of the meeting. Welcome, Joan. We're going to get going right now. So good timing.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm calling to order the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency meeting for September 8th. Welcome, everyone. Let's go ahead and do a quick round of introductions for the record. I'll walk through board members and then hand it over to Fran to introduce the staff. So Cynthia.
Cynthia Pratt from Lacey, and I'm vice chair of this committee.
Greg.
Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners.
Jill.
Jill Warney, Grace Harbor County Board of Commissions.
Joan.
Joan Cathy, Tumwater City Council.
Randy.
Randy Nevlin, Mason County Commission.
Okay, and that's our board that I see. I'll also quickly just introduce our guest who will tell us more about herself under the search agenda item. But we have Olivia Jablonski, the Human Resources Director for the City of Olympia. So welcome, Linnea. Fran, can you walk us through the staff?
Absolutely. So Fran McNair, Executive Director, Lynn Harding.
Lynn Harding, Administrative Services Manager. Welcome all.
Aaron is in here, is in for Mark Gooden today. Aaron Manley.
Hey, I'm Aaron.
He's an engineer. Odell Hadley.
Air monitoring.
Dan Nelson.
Hi, Dan Nelson, Communications Manager for ORCAA.
Mike Schultz is in for Robert today.
Mike Schultz, Compliance Supervisor.
Who am I missing? And Debbie Moody. Hi. Debbie, Office Manager. And then our two attorneys, Jeff Myers.
Jeff Myers and
Mike Throgmorton.
Mike Throgmorton.
Did I miss anybody?
Okay, and I'm Jim Cooper. I guess I should say that too, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so that takes us to our agenda. Is everyone okay with the agenda as published? Okay, we have an agenda. That takes us to the chair report, and I'll just say there was a personnel committee meeting, which we'll update you on in a little bit, and ask Cynthia, our chair of our finance committee, to give us a pretty good year-end finance update from the last meeting this morning.
Yeah, it was really great. So we had, or if I captured it correctly, some of the highest federal grants, $293K. We also had we received $159K in fines. Our expenditures were fairly low in that we actually returned, make sure I got this correctly, 127,615 back into our general fund. Our fund balance as of June 30th is now 1,848,692, and in the unreserved fund balance is 1,162,445. Let's see what else I need to capture. Our long-term liabilities, the balance is 44,273, and our pension liability is 495,663. So overall, we actually made a higher balance than expenditures, and it was pretty good. And our budget was very close to what we spent.
And I'll add that Lynn looked up for us in the finance committee meeting. Last year was our highest number of notice of construction permits ever in ORCAA's history. So and very, very high, nearly a tie for the highest asbestos demolition permit. So if you were on the board coming out of the Great Recession, there's huge leading economic indicators in the ORCAA book of business. And so it's just, I think, a really good sign for the economy and jobs throughout the region. Lynn said those notices are pretty well spread out through all of our counties. So it's really, I think, exciting news to be able to see in this standpoint. So thank you, Cynthia. Any questions on the finance report? Okay, so we go to public comment. I see no one on the call line, so we have no one for public comment.
That's correct.
Okay, so that takes us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, or polls? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to have a public hearing here. Dan, can you tee it up for me? Oh, not Dan. Who's standing in for Robert? I'm sorry, I should have written that down.
Yeah, Mike Schultz will be standing.
Mike, okay, Mike, welcome.
Welcome, hi there. Okay, real quick, this is B4 of your packet that Debbie sent out. This is almost like an administrative thing we do almost every year, if not every year now. And as it says in there, the staff's requesting that we move forward with this ORCAA Rule 1.11, and basically it's just to continue the dating of the ORCAA rules. You guys see it in the amended, it's going to be Rule 1.11. It's to keep our regs current with the federal regs. So if you have any questions, I think Robert put this together. It's pretty straightforward, and we've done it several years, but that's what we'd like to see.
Okay, great. Any questions? Okay, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. The public hearing is open. Is there any comments for the public hearing? Are there any comments for the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone. And then do we want action today?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd be open to a motion to approve ORCAA. I'm sorry, I was looking for a resolution number.
No, it's an ORCAA rule. It's just ORCAA Rule 1.11.
So yeah, so looking for a motion to approve amending ORCAA Rule 1.11 as presented.
I move that we approve the ORCAA Rule 1.11, federal regulation adoption date.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to Resolution 280, COVID-19 mask and vaccine policy. I think I'm going to go to Fran for this presentation.
Thank you. So Jeff actually helped us put together this resolution. It's pretty straightforward. We sent out an amended copy yesterday because there was a typo on the last page, page 4. It said under section 5, it actually, with all the iterations, it became section 7. So it's pretty straightforward, and I'd just be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just for the record, Fran, can you kind of describe the basic components of it so it's in the record?
Yes. So we're basically obviously, as you can see, the governor had his proclamation. And they're all, the iterations of different proclamations are cited throughout the pandemic. What ORCAA is looking at doing is saying that employees who are vaccinated must show me a record of vaccination, and there's 3 different ways you can show it. You no longer say that you are just vaccinated. You have to have proof of vaccination. There's 3 different methods. If you choose to not be, if you're not vaccinated or don't want to tell me you're vaccinated, then you must be tested weekly on Wednesday. And the reason that we came up with Wednesday was assuming people, do things on the weekends, and it's about a 3 to 5 day period after you're exposed where you would show potential contaminant or symptoms. So we felt Wednesday of each week, you need to be Wednesday of each week, you need to be tested and then show me the result. Then I will be the only one that has the proof of vaccination and the test results. They will not be open for anybody else to see.
Thank you, Fran. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions and discussion. Greg? And then Randy.
I had a question about sorry, I can't see it at the same time. I'm looking at the screen. But number 6 under the vaccination indicated that it talked about boosters. And I feel like I haven't seen CDC an update that indicates that you're not vaccinated if you haven't had a booster within 8 months. We don't even have boosters recommended yet. So I was just a little curious about that. I can find the exact number. It's number 6.
It's coming, and then there's going to be a pill you have to take every day, and yeah, it's crazy.
The intent of paragraph 6 was that your vaccination status is going to follow what the CDC or FDA guidelines are with respect. If they require it, then we will follow that. If they don't require it, we won't require it.
And the theory was we would do this once. Jeff said we would have the contingency in there. So right now, everybody that's had their 1 or 2 shots, depending upon whether it's J&J or Pfizer, Moderna, you're fully vaccinated right now. But if life changes, then 6 would go.
Okay, so if the CDC changes the guidelines for the general population, because right now we have that booster for medically vulnerable people, right? Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Good, Greg? Okay. Randy?
So, Mr. Chair, I got to ask you, do you want me to, I have very strong opinions on this situation, this change that we're looking to do. Do you want me to have that conversation now before a motion, or do you want me to wait for a motion?
It's up to your preference, Randy. I don't see a huge difference. It's still part of the discussion of the board, and whether it happens before or after a motion,
Okay.
I think that's up to you. And we want to hear your opinion because we know you've been working really hard on getting people vaccinated. So.
No, thank you. And if it's okay, I will go ahead, and I hope everybody will have a little patience with me because I know some are not going to like what I'm going to say. But please wait till I finish it and you'll understand maybe a little bit better. For those that don't know, I've helped thousands, not the organizations. I've literally put thousands since it started on buses, signed them up, got them in, helping people to get their vaccines. I also am vaccinated. With that being said, I very much am against things like this for many different reasons. I'd like to share with you why. For those that don't know me, I am what they call a Heinz 57. I have a little bit of everything in it. You will find on the Italian side, I'm Sicilian. We were conquered by the Moors, where you will find I have African in me. That's what the DNA tests also show. I am also Jewish by nationality, and I know people don't know that either. But, it was interesting in the past when we put these little yellow stars on people to separate them out, and it was all okay, and it seems simple enough in the beginning until it's used as a tool, not by the group as a whole, but by individuals in the beginning. With that being said, as we're sitting there getting ready to do something like this, we're starting to take and separate people out. Now, first of all, if you're vaccinated, you can still get the disease. Do not forget that, please. Now, for Mason County, we're doing real well. We're only at 5%, but you still can get it, and that's changing as time goes on. And with that, again, being said, I'm old enough to, and from Southern California, I remember when AIDS became a big thing, and we started talking with the different companies. I was a manager of different companies. I thought it back then, where we wanted to test men that we thought were gay because they could be bringing AIDS into the office. It was not the way things should have been done, and it was not the way things ended up being because enough people stood and fought it. But in certain places, it did happen, and people were ostracized because of it. It seems like a simple thing to you when you're looking at it, and this is your group, and this is how you feel, and you think it's important, but there's a whole nother group that's out there that feels different than you, and their needs need to be protected just as much as yours do. If we're going to do anything like this, we absolutely should make sure everybody is tested every Wednesday, not separate individuals and people out in order to be ostracized in the future. And you may not mean for it to be, but somebody else in the office may be very, very, very partial to how this should come out and get very angry on somebody that's not vaccinated. You don't want to have that. It's not up to us to be putting people into that position. Again, we think we're saving each other, but if you want to save yourself, go out and get vaccinated. Get your booster shot if you want to get it. Go lie on a form and have 2 different shots again. You take care of you, but don't try to force other people to sit within our parameters of what we think is comfortable. There's an old adage, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax that man behind the tree. You're behind the tree on somebody always. So I'd like to ask that you please reconsider this. If you are going to do it, first of all, pay for their time. You're not going to have to, you're going to end up paying for it legally later. Somebody's going to make you pay eventually with a lawsuit. You have to pay for their time as they're going to get tested. But if you do have to do this, everybody needs to be tested. Everybody, because you can get it too. You can bring it into the office too, whether you're vaccinated or not. It's just an idea of being fair and making sure that our people are protected, even those that we may disagree with. Thank you for giving me that moment, guys.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate your comments and your ability to articulate them. I want to just take a quick pause on the discussion and welcome Joshua Cummings. He's representing Commissioner Mejia from Thurston County. Josh, we're in the discussion about the vaccine mandate for staff, if you didn't already catch that, but there is no motion on the floor. So just so you caught up on where we are in the agenda.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone.
So does this mandate for ORCAA fall under Governor Inslee's mandate, or is this something you guys are doing on your own?
I'll answer that. The governor's proclamation covers state employees. It covers educational employees. It covers workers in healthcare settings. ORCAA's doing this on its own volition in order to show leadership on the issue.
And I'll add, the governor and the Department of Health have requested that all employers and local governments put a vaccine mandate in place because it is the best approach for public health around disease transmission.
I know lots of people sick with COVID right now that had the vaccine and hospitalized.
Certainly, Jill, I don't want to belittle that at all, but it's less than 5% of the total population of sick people in every county in the state. And actually, I'd love to, Jill, go ahead. I want to make sure we get your questions answered. So. Go ahead. What?
Some say that, but then they also say they're not tracking. I know somebody put in a public records request for the hospital in Aberdeen, and everything they were provided says they're not tracking that.
Okay.
So,
And also,
where are they coming up with these numbers?
So I gotta try and keep it to one, and I'm gonna do my best to save my talk till I get through you all. So if you don't step on each other, I won't step on you, okay? So Jill, more comments or questions?
Yesterday, Grace Harbor commissioners passed a resolution saying that we will not mandate vaccines here or proof of them. And, you know, whatever the governor does, obviously we're stuck with that, but we will definitely not be any stricter than what is already required at state level. And that's all I would support.
Okay.
I don't even support that, but we don't have a choice.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. Greg, can you tell us what's going on in Jefferson? Because I know I saw your chair post a pretty unprecedented level yesterday.
Yeah, our rates seem to double every week with, with a new record every week, twice what it was last week. And our hospital showing strain, as we share a health office with Clallam County, and their health system is almost collapsing right now. So our health officer with our support has done a vaccine mandate for restaurants and bars, which are outbreak hotspots. We have not done a vaccine mandate for staff in Jefferson County, quite frankly, because we're 30 people light in our staffing right now. And this is such a divisive issue that there are a lot of people that are valuable employees that would leave if we did the vaccine mandate. But it's something we're considering, and it's unfortunate that we're at this juncture of I don't know, everyone's got their heels dug in, it seems like, and I would rely on staff to give us an indication of how stressful this will be to the organizational structure. But I do think we're at the point that I'm supportive of this policy for ORCAA.
Any other comments or questions? Cynthia?
So I'm supportive of it too. Here's one of the reasons. I realize this is not a local government kind of entity, but we do go out in the field. We may or may not be vaccinated. We may or may not know that we have it. And therefore, then we infect the public. And I think that is a liability we should not carry on our shoulders. I think this way we make sure that we're healthy. We do it reduces the hospitalization and loss of employees that would have to be isolated or quarantined or in the hospital. We have to follow rules on many other things. We have to not speed. We have to wear seatbelts. We have to do whatever. This is not that big of a deal if you are trying to care about your fellow human being. That's my argument.
Greg, again, go ahead.
Yeah, and just in response to Randy's comment, I don't see the metaphor being quite, the Jewish in Germany, in World War II. This is a population health issue, and I think Cynthia got it right with driver's licenses. And you can't drive 100 miles an hour down a city street because we have a social contract that is a two-way street, and it's rough. But seeing the difference between Clallam County and Jefferson County, and the big difference is the vaccination rate. A 12% difference is leading to really the collapse of one healthcare system and the strain versus the strain on another. So, we're in the middle of a battle right now, and I'm willing to break some eggs, I guess, at this point.
Can I respond, Jim?
Go ahead. Yeah, Randy.
Okay, so the comparison between it, I think maybe I didn't articulate it correctly. First of all, there were people that thought back then, literally, if you look it up, you'll find that they thought there are certain things that Jews had that were contagious and were spreadable. That's one of the reasons why they used the yellow star. But aside from that, the thing I'm trying to articulate is not that as much as it is separating individuals. If you're going to do this, it should be done for everybody. You separate individuals, and eventually things do happen. People do talk. People do make an issue out of it. If you're going to hold somebody to a code or a law or a rule, you should stand up and follow the same exact rule yourself. The idea that you think that it's proper to do this and they don't, they have that right. You protect you by getting your shots, okay? But at the same time, for forcing them to do things, and I want to make sure the chair made mention of forced vaccinations. I don't think that's what we're talking about. The only issue I'm talking about right now that I think is before us that is questionable is testing on Wednesdays every week. If that's going to be in place, out of fairness, you need to make sure that everybody is tested so that you're not separating out individuals. And if they do, if we mandate testing, we also need to pay for their time to go and do it. That's taken several hours out of their day. So again, my concept, my issue is with the separation of the individuals and the things that I've seen happen over the past. I see no issue with telling people who are vaccinated, who can also get it, that they should be tested also as their vaccination. I'm on the Board of Health, and I can tell you their vaccination strength, it dissipates with time. It's being shown over and over again. Even Pfizer, they say after 6 months, we're down to 60%. Okay, well, that's fine. That means there's more people that become eligible as it goes on. But again, I want to tell you another thing in the numbers that doesn't get clearly out there, as was mentioned by that commissioner. People that had one shot, out of the beds, there were 31 beds that were covered in Kitsap County. Literally 20 of them were single shot that were vaccinated partially and not made it through. So just bear in mind, there are numbers that are not getting out there as well.
Well, and I would lift up, Randy, 2 points in your conversation, that this conversation is changing daily, and even the policy we consider today may not be enough tomorrow. And I appreciate your clarifying that your opposition is about the way the testing section is written, because you don't see it as a vaccination mandate because there's an out. And I just want to make sure I'm properly paraphrasing you.
Yes, we're in our verbiage, we're not saying that everybody has to get vaccinated.
Right.
So that's not a vaccination mandate, and I don't want to confuse, that'd be a whole nother argument.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for myself, it is separating individuals out and thinking there's not going to be a cost to that when we don't have to. If we do it, everybody does it, or nobody does it.
And can I also, one question that Randy brought up was coverage for time. People can use their sick leave, vacation leave, so they will be on paid time to get tested. So they don't have to be, they can use paid time, whether it's sick leave or comp time or vacation leave. And I think that's included in here also.
But it's mandated by the job. We can't not pay people for things that we mandate them to do. If we tell them to go to a restaurant or whatever, we have to pay them for their time to do that. We don't have them take sick leave for that.
Jeff, do you have a thought on that piece?
The choice as to whether or not to subject yourself to the testing requirement is the employees. Because the call of this requirement is to be vaccinated and to demonstrate proof of vaccination. But if the employee chooses not to, then they have to subject themselves to testing. I am not persuaded that this is a job requirement that has to be paid, because it is the employee's option. They can, and the way this was written is that these are work rules and eligibility to work at ORCAA to demonstrate negative COVID testing.
So similar to any condition of employment that you would have before you came on board, in your opinion. Okay. Well, and I think that doesn't the law.
But I do understand Commissioner Netherland's concern.
Right.
And there is a policy call. I don't think that you are prevented from paying them at the time, but I don't think you are required to.
And that would fall in Fran's lap as the CEO.
Or the boards.
Okay. And then let me also ask, related to that, is there also already a rule in place that the impact of the vaccination, like if it makes you sick, it would be in addition to your sick leave?
Yes. You can use sick leave if you have symptoms as a result of the vaccination. Yes.
See, I thought the IRS was doing something when if you miss extra time for your vaccination, that compensates the organization for the extra sick leave.
There was something in the CARES Act that was originally passed about additional leave. I'm not sure how that's been applied to vaccinations.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think there might be a little more there, but we might clarify that in how we operationalize if we move ahead. So, okay. Any further questions or comments? So I'll just add that, honestly, I see all sides of this, and mandates are really hard. And I know that there's, sort of a values difference there between some of us that we're not going to shift. So I really appreciate that we're able to have this, open and honest conversation. I also appreciate that we all are seeing the impacts in our communities as our hospitals are busting at the seams, which I think was the case for most of us prior to the pandemic. And so seeing our healthcare system crumble because we haven't been prepared for this is actually the main reason that I support this policy. I also would point to Cynthia's comment around the workplace and protecting our own employees and our ability to produce work. What I see in the data is, yes, some people who are vaccinated are getting ill, but they're largely able to return to work quickly. and the accommodations or the impact on the larger healthcare system is much less. Though I know I won't say it's non-existent, and I also will acknowledge that continually I've been frustrated with the moving target around the data for the last year and a half. Like, I don't think there's anyone, I mean, Josh is working, in a public health setting with our commissioners here in Thurston County, and just watching it in the capital county, it's hard to track from day to day what's coming out from public health and from the governor's office. And I do feel like at this point, we're in a place where this policy makes sense. And may need to evolve as it's tested. And honestly, to Randy's point, everyone should be testing themselves, if they have any sense that they've been exposed or close to anyone who may have been exposed. And I know my family's had multiple incidents of that, and we take it in stride. We figure out how to get one, and we do it. And I think that's a personal responsibility piece that many of our staff already have when they've been vaccinated. So with that, I would love to ask for a motion so we can see if, go ahead, Josh.
Just wanted to add real quick, sorry, Jim. As a proxy, I won't wade too deeply into the values conversation, but I did want to ensure that it was clear that it sounds from my perspective in the reading that this policy aligns with the decision of the majority of the board of Thurston County and the policy that they are also enacting. So just want to make sure that that was on the record in this discussion.
Good, and I'm actually really glad you said that, because the way this policy started was with our executive director sitting down with the city managers and the county manager and the IT director in Thurston County, because we wanted consistency in the government employers in our county. So, I want to commend Fran for taking that approach and bringing back something that matches what has now happened in at least in Olympia and the county. I'm not sure if Lacey and Tumwater have taken that that all the way to completion yet or not, but I do. Thanks for bringing that up, Josh.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Randy, go ahead.
I don't know for sure, but I want to give you a heads up. This may have a larger ripple effect than you think, and you may end up with a couple of the counties there being some very negative effect. Again, as I said before, I was trying to find a way to find a happy medium. If everybody is tested, at least there's a fairness aspect, but this does go further than what Grays Harbor, this does go further than Mason County. And I'm just giving a heads up, it may create an issue that you have not foreseen. My apologies, but that's a reality we may have to face.
Okay. Well, and I'll ask for the remainder of this conversation if there's a reason we should be talking about bigger legal implications that we should bring the board into executive session as we're allowed for that. So I appreciate the way you stated that and kind of danced around the edge, Randy, but I hear you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to see if there is a motion. The motion would be to approve the, go ahead, Randy.
Mr. Chair, I'd be willing to make a motion, but it'd be a little bit different. I move for the approval as presented with the addition to change the verbiage that says every Wednesday, all employees should be tested.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve with the amendment to require all employees to be tested every Wednesday.
Jim, I think procedurally what we need to have is a motion to amend
after it's on the floor. Yeah,
after it's on the floor.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Thanks, Jeff. So yeah, Randy,
but Jeff, that's not correct because we don't have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
So there's no motion to amend the motion on the floor because there's no motion on the floor. My motion is to pass it with this change in the verbiage.
I'll accept the motion if there's a second. I think it's really simply clear. So.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a second, but I have to make it.
Is there a second? Okay, hearing no second, Are there any more motions? Greg? Oh wait, Cynthia, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're moving or.
There.
I'll make the motion. I'll make
Okay,
a
go ahead,
motion
Greg.
to approve resolution 280 as presented.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 280 as presented. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I'm wondering if we should go into exec to talk about legal implications of this. Is that something we should do now?
I would say let's dispense with the motion, and then we can have our lawyer tell us if he feels like that time arises.
You have the ability to go into an executive session to discuss the legal consequences and potential litigation concerning a proposed action. This is a proposed action, and an executive session could be held for discussion with legal counsel concerning the legal consequences of that if public knowledge of those would be detrimental, which almost always is. And so you can go into executive session if we want to do that. Technologically, I'm not sure we're set up to do that right now, or as to whether or not a breakout room would be available as part of the Zoom call, but we could certainly do an executive session.
Well, I think if the board moved to do that, we would figure it out. But my inclination would be, if we feel like that's necessary, that we'd schedule that at a time when we have the technology set up to make sure everybody has access and the wrong people don't have access.
This may clarify it a little bit, Mr. Chair. The verbiage that I used was not, I had not considered that they would consider legal ramifications towards the organization. So I don't know that we could go into executive session based on what I was saying there.
That's the clarity I need.
Yeah, the context that I'm talking about is the possibility that counties talk about doing their own thing and moving away from. This is a hot button issue, and maybe that wouldn't even be a consideration, but I do know conversations will happen.
Right, and I can see that side. That's a different legal ramification for sure. So, but
that is not. I think that's a political consequence, not a legal consequence. If I understand Commissioner Netherland correctly, and that itself, I don't think is a basis for an executive session.
And I guess that's exactly what I was saying. I don't think this would be, if it was based on my comments, I don't think that it would qualify for an executive session.
Yeah, that would be more specific to a known threat around a lawsuit if that came about in that conversation. So
that's correct. And I've never heard anybody say that, so I'm definitely not relaying that message.
Okay, thank you, Randy. That's helpful. Greg, does that answer your question? Okay, Joan?
I just have a simple question. If we pass this today as is, as Greg has, I think, asked for, are we making any commitment, or is something going to trigger us coming back to this, or is this it?
I think I would, continue to listen to the board and speak with Fran about bringing it to the agenda if we need to. Absolutely. I think it's a real-time conversation. So if there needs to be updates, we would make sure that happens, whether it was coming from board members or coming from Jeff and Fran.
Okay.
Cynthia?
A quick, and this is a question for Fran. Do we know the percentage of those that are already vaccinated of employees?
Yes, and it's the majority that already are. There are only a few that are not, or that I'm not sure about. But the majority, yes, are vaccinated.
And that's why I feel the way I do. Again, remember, I'm vaccinated. I'm good. I'm worried about the rights of the minority and those who are different than us, because that difference is beautiful too in its own way, even if I disagree with it vehemently.
That's why I like you, Randy. Cynthia?
So but there also is built into this exemption, such as you can't get vaccinated because you're compromised or whatever else, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
So you're going to allow them not to get tested if they say that they have an exemption?
they have to apply for an exemption, and it has to be based upon, the same exemptions that state government has in terms of religious or, something that's medical. And you go through the same process. I would hope they'd still want to get tested just because they want to stay safe, but there is an exemption. And I'm not, and again, the difference here is that exemption applies to mandating vaccination. I am not mandating vaccination. So it sort of falls off the table in terms of exemptions, because that exemption does apply to vaccination, not to testing. So
Yeah, that's
Well,
what
that's
I
a good
thought. And we're not
clarification.
talking
My
about
read on this is that the testing would apply in an exemption situation.
that's
That's
correct.
what
That's the way it's worded.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thurston County did an aye.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it was on the cusp of my ask, Josh. So, okay, so I'm tracking 2 nays. Is that, anybody disagree with that? Okay, so motion carries, and I really appreciate the discussion. And then from that standpoint, I'll ask Fran and Jeff, just keep monitoring this conversation. Let us know if we need to clarify anything or have this discussion again, whether in open session or closed, depending on the legal circumstances around it. I have to tell you, I was nervous about this conversation, just being the chair and knowing where I'm at. And I really appreciate our ability to have it and continue to be good colleagues together. So thank you to everyone for that. We are not what we see in the news.
And I want to echo that. I appreciate the open and honest conversation we had. And yes, we will continue to communicate with you and work with the board and our employees. But thank you very much.
Okay, so that takes me to a personnel policy around something with initials that I forgot the acronym for, and I don't have it in front of me.
Commute trip reduction program.
There you go. Am I going to Lynn?
Yes, you are. You asked Lynn to come up with options, and we included in your material. Lynn put together 3 potential options for commute trip reduction, and she'll walk you through what she's done. She's done a great job on this, by the way.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Well, good morning,
Thank you.
everyone. Good morning, all. Nice to see y'all. So behind, looks like tab number B6, we have the C-TRIP, Commute Trip Reduction Program. I was asked by the board to report back to you on this program. For those who are not familiar with the program, which I doubt really, it's a program that was added to the Washington Clean Air Act back in 1991. ORCAA has been administering the C-TRIP program in-house since 2006. And the goal here is to, obviously reduce the single occupancy vehicles on the road, which obviously it improves our air with the reduced traffic congestion and our gas usage, et cetera. And currently, ORCAA provides an incentive to staff, which involves accrual of vacation time. So if staff conduct at least 13 round trips of using a alternative approach, they can get up to 2 hours a month of vacation. That amounts to actually 3 days per year. And I did contact various other jurisdictions to determine what incentives they provide and if they actually have the program themselves. So I know that the law does state that employers that have 100 or more employees are required to have a C-TRIP program in-house. And interesting enough, I got a lot of information. Veronica Jarvis, who is an associate planner with Thurston Regional Planning Council, great lady, I really enjoyed talking to her, provided me with a lot of information that TRPC, Thurston Regional Planning, they're kind of like the go-to agency that conducts a survey every 2 years to find out what everyone is doing out there. And she provided me with 2018, 2020. They do this every 2 years, and they're getting ready to do their next 2 year. But, so what I did, I tried to concise it into one page for y'all. And it shows you that ORCAA, you know, we provide alternatives. I've shared with you what our incentive is. Northwest Clean Air, Puget Sound, they pay for bus passes and or ferry passes. Spokane is part of a Commute Smart program that is only allowed in the eastern part of Washington. It's kind of like a spin-off of the Washington State's C-Trip program. And state agencies, you know, Washington State Conservation Commission, Agricultural, it varies by agency what the incentive is. It may be a subsidy, it may be a partial subsidy, it may be a gift card up to a certain dollar amount. The majority of state agencies in Thurston County offer a Star Pass program. Of course, right now, intercity transit within Thurston County, it's all free bus passes, so there is no cost, which is great. It's a 5-year pilot program that started January of 2020. It will continue until December of 2024. It's free bus pass wherever IT travels, you can travel free. Yakima, Benton, Southwest Clean Air do not have a C-Trip program at this time. I also investigated what counties in our 6-county jurisdiction have free bus fare, and besides Thurston, Mason County, Jefferson, and Grays Harbor, they have free bus fare. Thank you. And then also Clallam and Pacific, they have they charge a fare for their service. I also included on this snapshot exploring commute options. Thurston Here to There and Rideshare Online, it's a free service for folks to access to try to connect to other individuals who are trying to coordinate a van pool service or a carpooling, and it's a free service, which is great. So I just included that as an FYI. So when I come back to the board as requested, what are some options for the board to consider as changing up the type of program we have now? The 3 options, not in any one order, is reimburse for a bus pass. Well, there won't be any cost there because it's free bus until December 2024. 2, adopt a new program. A employee can earn $1 per trip or up to $2 per day if they commute at least, well, 60% of the, or excuse me, 60% of the time, and you're working at least 0.80 FTE. Everybody does here. In terms of FTE, we have 16 FTEs. And the 3rd option is continue with ORCAA's current policy. Earning vacation, a quarter hour up to 2 hours per month, or 3 days a year. And at the very bottom, I shared a chart with you what the costs have been for ORCAA. Pre-COVID calendar year, December through December, or January through December 2019, we had 5 employees participating in the program with an annual cost of $6,900. In 2020, we only have 2 people, and it cost us, a little over $2,700. So I share with you the 3 options, what our existing options are, what others in our jurisdiction, our sister air agencies, what they're doing. What else can I answer or share with you?
So I think before I open it up, I want to have 2 clarifications. So Lynn, which one of these is the most onerous on your time? Or which one of these is the simplest for you to track, actually, is the way I should ask that question.
It's easy to track no matter what you do, really. I mean,
okay. And then
right now, the current system is folded into our timesheet reporting mechanism. So
it's already set
either
up.
way, I mean, already set up, so really very little. I mean, we're already we're going through the motions as it is.
Okay, thank you. And then Fran, do you have a recommendation?
I really don't. It's up to the board. I mean, what we have works. You know, it's really, the board brought it up as, you know, and wanting us to look at it. So I don't really, either, any of the three would work.
Okay. Well, I think that this was driven by some other updates we did to the personnel policy. And if recollection serves, it was Randy that had some comments that moved us towards looking at options. So Randy, do you have a thought at the moment?
Yeah, sadly to say, my thought is I wish we would go back to focusing on what we're supposed to do as ORCAA instead of trying to do political little things on the side that make us look good, feel good, or whatever. I hate to say that, but that's where I'm feeling today. So I just don't know that this is a big pressing issue for us. We should be focusing on other things like codes.
Yeah, or getting ready to hire a new executive director. Is anybody inclined to shift in a different direction? Greg, go ahead.
I don't have a real strong preference, and I wouldn't mind keeping it with the status quo, but I was more drawn to the second option that, you know, treats everybody's trips the same rather than based on your salary. So I'd be inclined to go to number 2, that as a flat per day. So you know, whether you're an admin or you're a director, your commute, getting one car off the road for one trip seems worthwhile goal. This is not a big commitment of funds, and I think as a clean air agency, it is part of the mission to reduce this. So I don't think that it's insignificant. I think this is a small but important decision.
Thank you, Greg. Any other thoughts? Cynthia?
Actually, and I weighed all three kind of, but I like the idea of the incentive of actually, and I think number 2 is more of an incentive because it kind of encourages to try to get something for it. And, you know, it's the carrot kind of a thing, so.
Okay. So you're inclined towards number 2 as well? Other thoughts? Well, I'll add that I'm also my default is to not change it and keep moving forward, but I do like the parity brought in the second option. I think Greg really stated that well. Is anybody opposed? Well, let me know if you're opposed to asking staff to bring back a policy that switches from the current state of number 3 to number 2. And I got you on record already, Randy.
And me.
And Greg. Okay. So then I think Lynn, bring us back personnel policies that update that to number 2, and then we'll have a formal discussion.
Would you like that?
Great, I will do.
Fran, what?
Would you like that at the October meeting, or do you want to start it in January? What do you want to do in terms of timing on this?
I don't know. Do your cycles with employees go on their anniversary or January 1?
Well, our cycles, this wouldn't make any difference for anniversary, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, I would just say whenever whenever it fits in your time and our schedule, we have a lot to do, but to Randy's point, it's not our first priority because we have a system in place. But let's move it forward as staff can fit it in.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to our recruitment process. Just keeping an eye on the time too. So I want to ask Olivia Jablonski, the HR Human Resources Director for the City of Olympia, to introduce herself a little bit and let us know, kind of give us a high-level overview of the process that's described in our packet. And then I'll kind of take it and we'll walk through each of the pieces really quickly and see if there's feedback. And then we can hopefully launch our process shortly, if not, in this week. So Linnea, tell us a little bit about yourself and what we should expect in this hiring process as it stands in front of us.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. For the record, I am Olivia Jablonski. I am the Human Resources Director for the City of Olympia, and I am going to be helping recruit for your new executive director. So I believe in the packets that you received for the meeting, you have the timeline, their brochure, some comparable salaries. And so I've been working with the personnel board and then with Debbie and with Fran to come up with a timeline and what that might look like moving forward, and hopefully making a job offer probably really close to the holidays, sometime in December, depending upon the candidates that we get and the ability to stay on schedule. So Jim, I'm not sure if you want me to go into the timeline or if that's something that you want to work through together, or if there's questions.
Why don't you just give us a high-level overview of the timeline and kind of what and the process as far as what what you'll do versus what our role will be.
Perfect. So the plan is to have all the recruitment materials come directly to me. We at the City of Olympia just finished wrapping up our finance director recruitment, which I handled myself. And we did the exact same process. So we had the announcement advertised with my contact information. So I would reach out to each candidate that applied to let them know that I received their application. And then as we set up interviews, I contacted the individuals that we felt met the criteria that we were looking for and invited them to interviews. So if you look at the timeline, we're already past August. So we did accomplish creating the recruitment announcement. And then we also have a list of recruitment outlets that we would be posting the advertisement at. September, which we're currently in, and it seems like it's flying by. So approving the announcement, and I believe that is going to occur today. And then also just finalize it. And then as Jim mentioned, launch the recruitment. So if it's approved today, the brochure is ready to go. If there's any changes, I think that could be made pretty quickly and we could still launch it today. On all the different websites, and within the City of Olympia, it would also be posted on our website. And then we would also do some targeting if there's individuals that people know that might be interested in the position or they haven't been made aware of it. I'm happy to reach out to them. I will contact them, see if it's something that they're interested in, have a conversation, see if we can get them apply if we think they might be somebody who would be a good candidate. And then we roll into October. So we would start reviewing candidates then. Hopefully we'll have a robust group that we can go through and see who we might want to interview and move into that next process. We will then develop the interview questions and exactly what that looks like. There's been a conversation about COVID here. So most interviews we have been having at the city have all continued to be Zoom. And my expectation would be that in October that may continue, but again, it would be up to the individuals participating in that process. And also it's been better for people who don't live in the local area to at least have that initial interview via Zoom, because for instance, if there's somebody that maybe lives outside of the Pacific Northwest that might be interested in this position, that would give them an opportunity to interview without having to travel at the expense of either ORCAA or them individually. And then we will continue to review the candidates in the candidate pool through October. And then beginning the week of November 8th, we will be looking at recommending candidates to interview and then have the interviews conducted and then select the finalists. And that will all be hopefully in the week of November 8th. And then through that, obviously that will get us into the Thanksgiving holiday area. So I think we will probably not be interviewing the following week. If we need to, I think we could probably figure it out. And then the week of December 6th is when we talked about interviewing the finalist. And it looks like that might be personnel board or perhaps the entire board. I'm not sure exactly what the plan is there, but then we would conduct a background check, education, reference checks. And that is also something that I planned on doing. So we can conduct a background check, verify their education if necessary, and then also do the reference check. So contact people. And what I have done in the past is also like, always ask that question, is there anyone else I should talk to? Or if people know people in that area, maybe they're just double checking, because I always say people put on their references who they want you to talk to. So it's always good to kind of get some inside information if we have access to that. And then from there, hopefully select the top candidate and make a job offer, and then start to negotiate the employment package and what that looks like. So that will get us through the end of the year. That will be in December. So, and then hopefully the candidate could start, the hope would be in January or February of 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Linnea.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of additional items, and then we'll open it up for discussion, and we'll kind of go, the MOU is the process, and then we'll talk about the brochure and the job description for kind of the what we're looking for. And I want to also encourage people to, if they know candidates, either forward them to me or Linnea. And then I think the other piece that the personnel committee will be looking for is, what's the between the lines comments that you want us to be looking for in experience and personality? Sometimes you can't always see that in a job description, but if there are certain traits or qualities that you see that aren't written here that should be, that's important. But more importantly, letting us know, or me know, what your expectations are for candidates coming forward. And speaking of that, I do know that there's a couple of staff that are interested in possibly applying, and I've talked with 2 directly. I'll leave that for them to apply or not before, I don't want to out them. But also, so I let them know that I would bring up with you that we will run a parallel process that will be for any candidate, whether internal or external. And because of that, it took a minute to think through who and what staff should be in part of the interview panel with the personnel committee. And so my recommendation is that we use Debbie and Robert as staff members, and I've clarified with both of them, they are not applying for the position. Debbie will also help with a little bit of kind of the staffing as we come around. And so she's already prepped for me a track changes contract and, some of those things. So we'll be ready for the negotiations, as well as express to staff that they're interested in the position. They should give me a call or send me a note, and I can set up a time to talk to them. I've told the staff that I have talked to that I'm happy to answer questions and talk to them up until the moment they apply, and then once they apply, the process will prevail.
Jim, could I make a comment?
Just a minute, I'm almost done.
Right.
So I think the big question, I think in this conversation is also, are you okay with the personnel committee with a couple of staff and Linnea bringing you back, the top 2 or maybe the top 3 at the most for final interviews? And doing all of the other screening prior to that within the committee. And then we also need to talk about the salary range, but we'll do that when we get down to the job description package. So Fran, go ahead.
I would ask you to wait on who the 2 employees are, 1 or 2 employees from ORCAA, because you may have a conflict of interest. So I would ask that you wait until you see who the applicants are, and then determine which staff should be involved in the interview process, as I say, because there may be a conflict of interest.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so suggested for now, but to be finalized and maybe through email to the whole board once we have the pool closed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see Jeff nodding on that one too, so. Okay, so timeline and the relationship with the city of Olympia, comments, questions, process. Jill.
There's no fee involved.
No, I believe that this is, there's not a fee involved, right, Linnea?
Correct.
If there was, it would have to be in the MOU, right?
Yeah, correct. Good point. Thank you, Jill.
I didn't see anything, so it's fine.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. So thank you to the city of Olympia for.
Thanks
for your volunteer services.
And that was the similar what Lacey did when Fran was hired. So. Good question, Jill. Other questions around process and timeline?
Can I ask a question on timeline? So
Uh-huh.
right now, we scheduled to not have the board not meet in December. The question is, do we want to have, we may need to have the board meet in December. Do we not want, I mean, do you still want to hold the 10 meetings a year and not meet, say, in November? Or we can schedule, November and December to meet and at the last moment cancel one if we don't need it. So we normally don't meet December because of the holidays, but I just wanted to bring that up just because of the schedule.
Yeah, I think based on this schedule, we should keep December and have that be about the CEO. And then if the timeline is such that we need to flex, forward or back week wise, we can attempt to do that when we know more solidly where we are in the timeline. But we'll need to not only interview, but take an action to direct me to negotiate with the finalist.
Right. So we'll plan to meet then, obviously September, October, November, and December. We'll put that on the schedule.
Okay. Anybody okay with that?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody. Okay. So any other questions about process and timeline? Okay. Let's just do through a consensus. Is everybody okay with the MOU? Fran executing the MOU. Okay. Any concerns? Okay, Fran, that's good.
Thank you.
So that then takes us to the brochure. Thank you, Dan, for pulling off this brochure. I love it when it's a brochure that sells the community first, and a lot of our local governments are really good at that. And so much appreciated for that artistic eye and the language updates. So questions around the brochure. I was going to suggest, and I'll say this now so we can put it on the table, looking at the salary compensation comparisons that Debbie did for clean air agencies. My suggestion is to bump up the range a little bit to make it $160,000 to $180,000, so we have some flexibility for negotiation. But otherwise, the brochure looks really good to me. So comments, questions, thoughts around the brochure or the salary range?
Right now, the salary range is 140 to 175.
Correct. And if you're looking ahead, the next there's a compensations chart that Debbie put together that's I think 2 items down. That's B7D.
Jim, what's the advantage of lowering the floor of the range? Were you talking about moving?
No, I suggested bumping the whole thing up to 160 to 180 instead of 140 to 175. Though I'll tell you right now, based on some hiring I've been doing for CEOs in the nonprofit sector, none of the salary ranges are on for what people are willing to accept for employment these days. So we would want to be ready for a conversation depending on who our finalist is.
And remember, the Puget Sound Clean Air is an agency of 75 employees.
Right. Not comparable.
Not comparable, absolutely. Northwest, I think, is 20. Yeah, you can see it's 23. So, I mean, the agencies that are similar in size are Olympic and Southwest. Well, we're Olympic, but Southwest is comparable to us. And Spokane is the same, has more employees. Their salary is lower.
Cynthia.
I think at least our floor should be 160,
Okay.
not lower than that.
Okay. Do you have a thought about the ceiling, Cynthia?
Well, I know you said we threw out like up to 180, and that's possible. I noticed that would not be within particularly this range, although Northwest was 177. So I guess you could make it 180, but I'd be a little hesitant. I might say 175 maybe, but.
I will add, part of my thinking here is that we're going to see in the next 5+ years some more retirements in our executive team, and we're going to need to, that's going to cause everything to need to change, and so we don't want to have to adjust the executive director at the same time. So just one thought there. Other comments?
I guess I'd still like to see the floor at 150, just because, man, we're gonna really struggle to get a county administrator if this is the rate that ORCAA's paying. But it's, you know, it is what it is. But I guess I'm inclined to keep the floor of that a little bit lower, so 150 to 175.
Well, and that gives you the ability to really look at experience and where someone's coming from and not just write a check. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Greg.
more negotiating room too.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Okay. So that's the kind of that makes sense to me. So the proposal now is to have it be 150 to 180. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments on the brochure?
It's pretty.
It really is.
It's lovely.
Yeah, Dan does a really good job on those things. It's cool. Okay, so the job description and selection process has a little more detail than the brochure. Any questions or comments on that piece?
I will just note that the photos in the brochure represent all 6 counties, and I shot them myself.
Ah, right on.
Nice.
Okay. We talked about salary compensation, and then there's a list of advertisement brainstorms. Any comments on the advertising? I think, you know, my sense about this is it's going to be we'll do the advertising, but it's going to be a lot of word of mouth, you know, and leadership around our communities. You know, so I hope that all of our cities and counties will do a little bit of promotion and social media and email to their lists to help us spread the word. You know, as well, I appreciate that the advertisement list has the Department of Ecology. I wondered if there's, I feel like when I used to work at Ecology, there was a state employee type of newspaper that had some employment opportunities, but I don't know if is that a thing still?
I don't remember from when I was at DNR. I don't remember.
Maybe it was only Ecology specific.
I don't remember it from WashDOT, so.
Okay.
I'm wondering if DNR should be on that list.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition, Cynthia. To add DNR to the advertising list, however that works.
We would just send it to DNR like we do, like we get things from Ecology and all other places. And we would
Just ask your staff contacts to distribute it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I imagine Debbie will be doing some of that in partnership with Linnea.
Or Dan. Dan will do it.
Okay. Okay, any comments, questions? You know, highlight what we're looking for. Okay, so I would like to ask for a motion to direct staff and Linnea Jablonski to launch the search process as soon as possible.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we allow them to launch the search process as soon as possible within the parameters we just set forward.
I second it.
Okay.
Cynthia Pratt.
Okay, so we have a motion and second to move forward with the search process as discussed. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone, and particularly thank you to Linnea and Cynthia and Greg and Fran and Dan and Debbie for helping us get to this point. It's really great to be here, and I will just ask you if you have thoughts about what we should be really looking for between the lines in this hire. Please reach out to one of the search committee members or Linnea directly and let us know, you know, what you're thinking or what's on your mind. You know, I think other than saying we want to clone, you know, all of Fran's best attributes and have 4 of her, that you know, that's not quite what we'll get. You know, it'll be different. And the dynamic of this hiring, as we all know, is we'll have 3 people that will want the best qualities of all 3 of them to make one person. And so as much conversation as we can have around that prior to the meeting or prior to selection is helpful. if I was doing this outside of the pandemic, I would ask for us to have a quick facilitated discussion about what we're looking for. So please do reach out if you have thoughts or ideas around that kind of as we move ahead.
Mr. Chair, on a little bit different thing, is Fran in a retirement system, a PERS retirement system? Or are they doing something different?
I'm in PERS too.
Fran's PERS too, and at
That's-
finance this morning, we said in October, we're gonna talk about Fran's, departure and the leave implications to our checkbook.
Okay, well, I just want to throw out there for consideration quickly that that's usually based on what is the 3-year basis, the highest rate. If we're going to raise what we're going to offer others, we might want to consider doing something to help there.
Sure. I don't understand what you're saying, Randy.
He's saying give you a raise if we're gonna pay somebody else more so that you can get the proper retirement for it.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was saying.
I forgot what's Fran at now.
165.
165?
Yes.
If we're going to offer more, it will have a great impact on her retirement, a month of that other rate.
Good
Sorry,
point.
guys.
No, I think it's a good idea. In my mind, I'm processing how to handle it. We have a personnel committee meeting right after this. If you're okay, we can talk about it there as part of our conversation around the search. And then if we agree with you, we'll bring back a recommendation. But either way, we'll bring it up next meeting. Unless you want to
Call for a special meeting. So if you decide to do this, call for a special meeting so it can be done quicker rather than later to make sure she's vested with enough time. I think it has to be a month or something like that. If you're going to do it, we want to do it right.
Lynn, if we did a amendment to a salary and an action right now, would you need to bring back a budget amendment, or are we okay where we are right now and we just monitor that?
I think we need to determine what the costs are, and it's possible we will need to do a budget amendment. In fact, likely we'll have to do a budget amendment. But also on the question you posed about trying to increase Fran's retirement, what PERS does, PERS 2 takes the 5 highest years' salary, average it, multiplies it by the number of years in the program, in the retirement system, and multiplies it by 2%. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get to where Randy has suggested. I'm just putting that out in front of you because vacation payout is not calculated in with the retirement formula under Department of Retirement Systems. I just thought I'd throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
But don't they consider that rate the rate for the year? The highest rate you get the rate for the year. So it does calculate as we just did this for somebody in our department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what's paid into the system. What's already in the system, the 5 highest paid 5 years. That's applicable to a retirement.
Right, but if
The
you got a
payout
raise,
vacation-
what he's asking though is if you got a raise mid-year and that made that year one of your 5 highest, it would be based on the raise amount, not the average for the year.
Okay, it's the 5 years of contiguous salary. So
Okay.
they're going to take like her last 5 years of work at the organization that she's paid into the system.
And we just did it with our director, and it had an impact on his, and he only had to pay for several months, but it counted as this year's pay. When they didn't average how much was paid in, they averaged your yearly rate. Your rate that you're paid for the year, your highest rates for the year. But again, I could be wrong. I'm just telling you what happened with us.
Randy, I would say, you have the floor and we're in a moment. If you want to make a reasonable recommendation to the board as a motion, we can direct staff to bring back a budget amendment to accommodate it.
I make a motion that we increase Fran's rate to the upper rate. She has more experience than anybody we're going to be bringing in, that we're going to be offering.
Say a number. You're not talking about the top of the range, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I'll take that as a motion to give the executive director a salary increase until her retirement, so that it is at $180,000 per annum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion.
When does this take effect, please?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
Okay.
So, Randy, can I ask if you would pick a date in that motion?
Okay, what's your recommendation? I would think it's on the next check, but
October 1.
October 1 it is.
Okay, Jill, is that motion still okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to do a salary increase effective October 1, and ask staff to bring back any necessary policy or budget updates to accommodate that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Josh, sorry.
I'm gonna need to abstain from this one.
So I have Thurston County abstaining. Correction on the record. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is totally unexpected, and thank you very much.
Well, it's a slap in the face to hire somebody else that doesn't know as much to do your job for more.
Thank you.
Well, and we value you, so.
Thank you.
And good teamwork there, everyone. Way to keep it flowing. I want to, though, also say, Fran, something that I almost said in finance and I forgot, is that when you leave your transition plan, or if we need to take any action prior, to make sure that our salary reviews are done by policy on a regular basis, because I think we're getting close to needing to do that again for the rest of the staff. And as we move the executive director salary, we need to make sure we stay within the comps so that we can keep good people. So if you can think about that in your thought process for the next couple of months, it would be wonderful.
And that, again, that's part of my transition plan for I've got a list of things, and that's on my list for the new director.
Okay. And I don't know have we codified that review?
Codified the review? No, we just said approximately every 5 years we would do a staff review. And,
Okay.
and in theory, we probably should have done one in the past year, but I was nervous because of the pandemic.
COVID, yeah, we delayed it, right.
But at
Okay.
some point, it needs to be done early on in 2022.
Okay. Okay, Cynthia, because you're about to step away, let me just check in. Greg and Cynthia, do we need a personnel meeting today? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay. Linnea, do you think we need it? Okay. Okay, so we'll call that canceled, and then I'll keep moving with the agenda. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, so we have a process, and Fran's gonna think through and talk in her transition plan for the new director around salary review for the rest of the staff as well. Okay, well, this is gonna be a big lift. So here we go, everyone. Thank you, Linnea, for supporting us through it.
Absolutely.
That was fun. Thanks, Randy. Okay, so we're gonna go to compliance report and go to
Mike's gonna do that.
Mike,
go ahead, Mike.
thanks. I'm filling in for Robert here, and just keep it real short, quick, because I know this has gone on. You've got the package. I think it was a B8, if I remember correctly, on the list. What it'll show is a busy summer inspection season. You'll notice first few pages with inspections, and I want to highlight the new guy, Rob. His initials RDW. He's the guy we hired with the board's blessing in July, and he's doing really good. So our inspections there's been several inspections done. It's wonderful to see that list be large, because in the winter it slows down. And as you look through the whole packet, just one little highlight, and this is something that compliance, along with Fran and Dan, we're all involved in, but we want to make note of the fact that, and Dan may go into more details on this, but there was a few compliance people involved, Rob and Allie and Robert in particular, but we had a homeless guy who got a violation. And the success story there is, he, a lot of those people just kind of toss our violations away and don't worry about it. This guy actually worked with Dan in a bookstore that he had a post office box with, and then some compliance people. He got brochures to hand out, posters on a thing. He did some real good work outreach for us in lieu of paying some money. So from a compliance standpoint and enforcement standpoint, that was a good outcome on something that normally we wouldn't have got anything from. So, and again, for the outreach part, I'll let Dan talk more about it if he wants to, but that's something we don't see a lot. It was real good to see that. It might be a model for some future outreach issues with people who can't pay.
The fine was community service.
Exactly, yeah. And we've had a few of those in the past. I worked with a guy down in Raymond who did some stuff right before COVID, and COVID came, so it shut down some outreach there. But yeah, I think that's a good way to, he wasn't a homeless guy. He was just a guy that was really struggling. And so, yeah, I think it's maybe a good model that we can bring into play more often. But again, because things are running short, if you guys have any questions on the packet from B8, I'm happy to answer them, or at least try. And if not, that's all I'll have. Any questions?
Any questions on compliance? Okay, great. And I think, are we going to Aaron for engineering?
Yes.
Aaron, take it away.
Hello. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Aaron Manley, ORCAA Engineer 2, and as Fran mentioned earlier this morning, I'm filling in for Mark Gooden. I just completed my 8th year here at ORCAA, and I think it's been a great place to work. I really enjoyed my time here. Moving on to business, the permit report shows ORCAA issued 13 permits since the last report. In addition to those 13 permits issued, there are another 2 we finished, and we're just waiting on the applicants to pay their final bill or for signatures to issue the permits. And there's an additional 2 permits currently out for applicant review, which should be completed shortly. One of the 13 issued permits was the McKinley Title V Air Operating Permit, and one of the 2 permits out for review is the Sierra Pacific Industries Shelton AOP. I think it's fair to say it's been a busy and productive summer. One of the interesting sources we're permitting right now is Armstrong Consolidated LLC, doing business as ACI Boats and Gold Star Marine, located in Port Townsend. Armstrong's metal fabrication processes include spray coating, abrasive blasting, and welding for the construction and repair of aluminum catamaran and monohull boats. Armstrong has been an interesting source to permit because of their multifaceted operation. Permitted activities include tungsten inert gas welding and shielded metal arc welding in their 3 dedicated welding bays, spray coating operations in a fully enclosed spray booth, and abrasive blasting operations using a D500 blaster in a fully enclosed booth, plus the associated fume extractor units and cartridge filters associated with those controlling those operations. Armstrong has been very cooperative throughout the process. They didn't have any type of controls on their welding operations, saying they just open up the bay doors and exhaust outside uncontrolled. We told them facilities primarily engaged in welding operations are required to employ BACT. They agreed it made sense to control their emissions and proposed first stage MERV 9 filters to filter out larger particles and second stage activated carbon HEPA filters with an efficiency rating of 99.97% against 0.3 micron particles. ORCAA staff determined their proposed controls met BACT for this case. I heard you all appreciate efficiency, so that includes the engineering report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Aaron. Questions around engineering? I had a question around that, just the Amazon one at the top, 8 temporary engines. Are those generators or some other piece of equipment?
Yeah, I was not involved in that case. That was Mark, and unfortunately, he's the only person who's not here right now. But I did tangentially hear a little bit about it, and yeah, it was temporary emergency, not emergency generators, but temporary power generators. Maybe emergency. I could ask around, but yeah, generators.
It's temporary generators until they get, they need the generators for power until they get the. So it is very temporary.
Okay.
So
That just demonstrates the scale of that facility.
But they had to go through a permitting process just because of the number and the size of the generator.
Right. Okay,
Where's Amazon going in Lacey? Out by Hawkesbury
yeah,
towards Cabela's?
yeah, it's out back there by the Target warehouse, I think, behind Cabela's. Okay, any more questions on engineering? Cynthia, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with Jill that that is where it was.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate your efficiency and your service. Good time at the organization.
Thank
Okay, let's go to Odell for air quality.
I had to unmute myself before I shared my screen, or my unmute button disappeared. Sorry.
Gone forever, yeah.
There we go. And can you all see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So 2 months of air quality summary, July and August. Let me get this here. So July looks pretty normal for the summer, all except for Aberdeen. We did have one day that just bumped into the moderate barely. And I believe that was when we had some smoke coming in off the coast that kind of recirculated around, but it was hardly anything. So not much to worry about there. We did lose some data at Chesapeake, about 5 days total. We had some problems with the data logger. It just stopped logging the data. All the instruments were working, everything was working fine. It just stopped logging data. So fixed that, but we did lose some data there. And then in Lacey, there was a failed quality check on July 6th. And in order for data to be considered valid, it has to be sandwiched between 2 valid quality checks, and those occur once every 2 weeks. So when the July 6th failed, we had to invalidate the data going back 2 weeks into June. So it resulted in 5 days data loss. I'm sorry, 6 days data loss in July, and then an additional 8 days in June, which then had to be pulled after the fact. So that happens from time to time. It's why we do it. It's not that big a deal. And as you can see, we had all good data, so there wasn't anything critical that we missed. And then in August, we did have a small wildfire intrusion where you can see some of the numbers bump into moderate and unhealthy for sensitive groups. Aberdeen and Raymond were spared this smoke event. They were on the coast. So that smoke came up over the mountains and kind of just barely hit Mason County and Lacey for a couple of days. And then we had some smoke that came down, drifting down from British Columbia and hit the north coast of the peninsula for a couple of days, those same days. So you can see we had a moderate and unhealthy for sensitive groups at Chesapeake. Port Angeles, we had 2 unhealthy for sensitive groups. Port Townsend, 1 and 1 moderate and unhealthy. And those were the same days, and you can see that the numbers are about the same and not absolutely horrible. So all things considered, especially based on last year, I'll take it. We also lost a day of data again at Lacey when a spider climbed into our nephelometer. Apparently it's a spider that's been making the rounds on the state, and they've assigned it one of the owners at the Department of Ecology. That's Jill's spider that keeps climbing into different nephs. And then we had a data loss in Port Angeles. Our communication went offline on August 31st, and Nick went up and fixed it yesterday. So that is back and running. We actually didn't lose any data. The modem just bumped itself off, so it wasn't communicating with the state servers. So ozone is our summer pollutant, and this is July, Thurston County ozone, and that looks pretty typical. And as the weather warms up, you can see the ozone starts to rise, but nothing of concern. This is the hourly averages in July. In August, it looks very similar. This red line here at 70 parts per billion is the 8-hour national ambient air quality standard. So we don't want to go over that line. And you can see on August 12th, we came very close to it with an 8-hour average of 62.5 parts per billion. And then this was high too. So what was happening on those days? Well, that was the day where we had our wildfire smoke intrusion. So if you have a little bit of wildfire smoke, it brings in a lot of volatile organic compounds with it, and that can increase the rate of ozone production, especially if this blue line here is the ambient temperature, especially when you have temperatures that are above 90 degrees. So here's our wildfire smoke. It's up in about 30, which, you know, a really bad smoke intrusion would be up around 100. And what that does is block the sunlight, and you need sunlight for ozone production. So when you have a lot of smoke, sometimes we also see suppressed ozone. So this is about the right amount of smoke to enhance your ozone production without blocking the sunlight. That would also be part of that equation. And so what does this smoke do? I just wanted to show you this where we had similar temperatures the day before on the 11th, and our ozone production was down here around 40 parts per billion. And here's our PM 2.5, which is down here around 4 or 5. And then we have this bump here and around, and then the ozone comes up here and approaches next. So that's something we need to worry about. And that's one of the reasons we worry about volatile organic compounds as our emissions for keeping the ozone production down. So that, and then here we see the same temperatures, but lower ozone, also lower amount of smoke. So that is what was going on there. Other monitoring news, I did finally, so after the community toxics and all the other stuff I was doing, I finally finished the Thurston County Saturation Study Report. So I did present that data to you a couple of years ago, but the report itself is now finished, and Dan published that to our website. So that is accessible now to the public if they go to our site to visit it. And I've been able to start on the Mason County Saturation Study Report a year later. So yeah, I apologize for the lag in time, but I should be at least get the data in a presentable format to you guys, and then the report will follow. I'm also working on a proposal for funding to upgrade the infrastructure at Chesapeake. Right now, EPA has what's called the American Rescue Plan so ARP funding, and you might hear about that through EPA, the ARP funding project, and that's for upgrading infrastructure and improving monitoring across the country. So the site at Chesapeake is very old, and a lot of our shelters and the tower are very old and need maintenance, and at some point might even become a safety issue. So I am working on a proposal to convince EPA that they should fund an upgrade there, which fingers crossed. Oops. This is another thing I want to talk to you guys about. I set up Enviro for all of our sites. Enviro is a company that that cooperates with AirNow or teams up with AirNow. And so if you guys, I've included the link and should be in your packet. If you go there, you'll see a map. All of our sites in our region, our air monitoring sites, are now active on that map, and you can click on it and you can sign up for air quality alerts, and you can sign up for at what level you want that alert. So if I forecast that it's going to be moderate or unhealthy for sensitive groups or whatever, you can set the level at which you would want to receive an alert. So and this is for 5 days out, I believe. So if I forecast that Clallam County is going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups 3 days from now, and you've signed up, you'll get an alert that's in the forecast. And then secondly, when the actual monitor reaches a level unhealthy or unhealthy for sensitive groups or above, you can also sign up for an alert there. So you'll get an email that says your site or whichever sites you've signed up for have reached that bad air quality. So you don't have to just go and check if you're curious. So you'll actually get the alert notification. So that's a really cool new tool that we've been working on, and I think that will be helpful. And just one other thing I wanted to mention, and in July, a new law through LNI went into an effect. And the law is basically to protect outdoor workers when air quality is bad. So if air quality reaches 20 micrograms per meter cubed or 35 micrograms per meter cubed, companies that have outdoor workers are required to inform the workers, and in some cases, if it gets bad enough, supply them with the N95 masks or some kind of respiratory protection. Because of this law, we're getting a lot more interest from companies, and there's a lot more importance on us keeping our monitors accurate, making sure they're not reporting bad data, because that has real world implications. If somebody is required, and a spider crawls in my nephelometer and suddenly it's reading 50 to 300 micrograms per meter cubed, we get a lot of calls from companies saying, oh my gosh, what's going on? Do we have to inform our workers or supply these masks? So it puts a little bit of extra pressure on us to make sure that the data are good. And it also empowers companies to be able to, instead of having to go look for the data, be informed when it's a problem. So check it out. And also, if you get calls from companies that are curious about that, you can point them in that direction. Also did a site visit to Chesapeake. That's typical. We'll be doing more of those. Smoke forecasting and weekly calls. That's been a big one this summer. So I'm part of the WA Smoke blog crew. So we keep a little chat going, and so we've had weekly meetings with National Weather Service and with the other forecasters across the state. Dan also might talk a little bit about that. He participates in some of those calls, but we've been really lucky. It's what I call the circle of protection around Western Washington. We've had a great marine push, and it's kept the smoke basically to the north, to the east, and to the south of us, but just kind of kept us in our little sphere of clean air, which has been nice for us. And I took a lot of vacation this month, so maybe was slightly less productive, or in the last 2 months, I took more vacation that I haven't taken for a while. So slightly less productive than other times when I've reported to you. So that is all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Odell, is EnviroFlash a government website or not?
No, they're a private company that that works with AirNow. So
Okay.
so I can access and set up our sites through the airnow.gov site, but EnviroFlash, and I'm not sure if they're contracted, like maybe, I think maybe EPA. Dan
It's
can
funded
answer
by
that.
EPA.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Dan.
The EPA there now funds it, and they just hired an independent contractor to design the software instead of creating their own.
Cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad that you set it up. I just wondered if we should put a link to that sign up on our homepage.
I think Dan will talk about that because he's been really heavily involved in this as well. And so he'll talk more about the public outreach part of that.
Cool. Perfect. Any other questions for Odell? Thank you.
Well, continuing on the EnviroFlash, I'll just jump in since we're on that topic. That has been around for a while. I've been participating in it, or at least been aware of it, and had a membership in EnviroFlash since I think 2013. But we've had some problems in the past, mainly because our monitors show the Washington Air Quality Advisory Index, and EnviroFlash as an EPA tool shows the AQI, the Air Quality Index. And so since the numbers don't line up perfectly, sometimes if we had people subscribe to EnviroFlash, they would get alerts saying air is good, whereas our monitors would be showing moderate. And so there has been that ongoing issue. That's why we haven't really promoted it in the past, but we can get around that. We stick with promoting the colors for the different levels of health advisories rather than the numbers, and it solves a lot of that. Plus, as Odell said, that the LNI changes where people need to be aware of what the current air quality is for worker health. To abide by state law, that makes it much more attractive to use EnviroFlash. So now that Odell's got the forecasting tools worked out, and we have worked out any kinks, I've updated some of the design and things we can do on the site. We will be doing a full press release and email alerts and getting this out on our website. jumping back even further to what Mike talked about with the Mr. Willings and the homeless burning, that was a great win for ORCAA and for the community. As Mike noted, not only did we get a result that stopped the illegal burning for that individual, but he helped promote better practices within his community of the unhomed. And it also gave us the chance to work with local businesses. There's a small used bookstore in downtown Olympia that acts as a mail stop for several members of the homeless community. And we were able to engage him, and I've spent 3 or 4 sessions with him talking in his store and leaving materials. And so he's become an advocate for ORCAA as well. So it's not just getting one burner that's doing his penance and taking out brochures and sharing them. It's creating a community of communication and outreach that's helped us. So that was a win-win for us. So really happy to have worked with Robert on that and had a good outcome all around. Our wood stove replacement program, we did get a renewal from the state. We're still working on the contract to get it finalized. We had asked for total funds of $360,000. The statewide ask exceeded the available funds by about $1 million. So we ended up with a $260,000 grant for the biennium, less than we asked for. The good news is the administrators of that fund have promised they're going to do a better job of monitor and track the expenditures of the grants across the state, and agencies that don't maintain good spending and program efficiencies will have some of their funds rolled back and put in a pool for us that do have a history of being able to spend those funds. So we can pull that in, and that's what we did the last biennium. We got, I believe, a total of 35,000 extra over what we had initially been allocated. So that program will be launching hopefully by the end of the month, if not sooner, once we get the paperwork back from the state and get everything signed and all the documents put in order. Side note on that, just as a win for the outreach, I have a friend and colleague from my WSU college days who's a producer for Bloomberg News in Hong Kong. And he emailed me yesterday and we had a long chat last night about residential wood smoke pollution in China. And we talked about government programs that can help reduce that. So ORCAA may be featured in Hong Kong news shortly. So we'll see if Steve gets me the clips from his Bloomberg report, but I wasn't on camera, so you don't need to worry about that. But we may get some quotes in.
I'm thinking air agency sister city.
That would be interesting. Yeah, if you need somebody to fly out to Hong Kong and check it out, we can talk. Outdoor burning will be relaunching the seasonal burn ban for most of our counties. Officially runs through September 30th. Whether the fire departments and fire agencies extend that is yet to be seen. It's been an incredibly dry summer, so I haven't heard from any fire departments that are looking to end their burn bans early, but some have indicated they may extend that burn ban if we don't get significant precipitation in the coming week. So we'll keep you posted on that. Finally, we have in your board packet our annual report that follows what we've achieved under the strategic plan. I won't go into the details there, but you can read through that and see that even though we had a pretty challenging COVID year, we had a lot of work completed by an incredible staff here at ORCAA. So, any questions?
Thank you for that, Dan. Any other questions for Dan? Sorry, I'm just looking at my packet because I didn't notice the annual report when I reviewed it.
It should be right. If you grabbed it early, I had got it to Debbie right after she posted it. So if you didn't see it right away, it should be there now. But it's right after Odell's report.
Yeah, I have Odell's report as the last thing.
Okay, so
okay. So if you can get that to us, I would have been ready with a comment about how great it was if I had reviewed it. So
okay.
We'll get it sent out today if you don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so that it should be on that website link. It's definitely posted on our website under the board minutes, meeting documents. So,
okay,
but we can email it out to everybody.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Okay, Lynn, finance.
Okay, well, you heard from Cynthia regarding our year-end report. Again, a positive report, so always nice to be able to report results like that. And you know, I just have two courtesy kind of updates. In October, we're having a couple guests from the Thurston County Treasurer's Office, and they'll be attending our board meeting to share with the board the role of the treasurer and the accounting investment strategies and services that they offer to us as an outside agency, which we're one of 4. And second, the Finance Committee will be meeting again next month in October prior to our regular board meeting. Other than that, I'm happy to entertain any questions, or again, thank you everybody for all you do and how you support ORCAA.
Thank you, Lynn. Questions for Lynn? And I'll just point out that Dan dropped the annual report link in the chat, so you should be able to just grab that. Okay, Fran, bring us home.
Right. So I actually have a question for Josh while he's part of the meeting. Dan had mentioned that, we're looking potentially, we're looking at ending the fire safety burn ban at the end of September. And I just wondered what Thurston County is thinking about. Are you thinking of extending it based on the dry conditions?
I think that Dan's statements align with our perspective as well. And our fire safety burn ban is aligned with the same timing, but we will be looking at the precipitation.
So there's a possibility it might go beyond September 30th.
I'll have to check with the fire marshal, but yes.
We often go along, or the different counties go along with DNR, and I know DNR has put out significant warnings about fire safety, but I haven't heard anything. So yeah, okay, let us know.
Yeah, we'll be reviewing it with the commissioners. Thank you for checking in.
Okay, thank you. One other piece is kind of interesting. I had a conversation or call from Commissioner Peach in Clallam County a few weeks ago, a week or so ago, about a biochar facility that is potentially going to be developed next to Interfor Port Angeles. And it was a question about permitting and what would need to occur. And I talked to Mary Ellen Winborn, who you all remember used to be on our board, and they would obviously have to go through notice of construction. It's a very, very large plant. It's a fairly new employer or new company. And what, I'd said that, we would obviously be looking at opacity and looking at emissions. What's interesting about the whole thing is I then found out that it's actually on tribal land. So I actually called the gentleman back who's the operations manager in Washington, and indicated that they need to work with the lower Elwha, and that EPA would probably be involved in the process. But it's going to be a very large plant. And I mentioned when I was talking to him about one of our facilities is down in Pacific County. It's a fish processing plant called Pacific Row. And the biochar could be used there to help mitigate some of the odor. So he was kind of interested in that. So he's working with Herman Brothers. They're working with Herman Brothers, which is a big company up in Clallam County, Port Angeles. So it's going to be a process to watch over the next couple of years. Again, it's 2 years off, but I was really pleased that first of all, that I got the call from Commissioner Peach, and that I did reach out to the company and sort of gave them a heads up about what they should be trying to do as they move through this, permitting process. He was not aware at all about EPA's involvement or the tribe's involvement, but he did know it was on tribal land. So we'll be watching biochar come hopefully, come available under the tribe, but it'd be under lower LWOP. And with that, I just want to also thank you for that salary increase. I was totally unexpected. And, I'm going to be happy to work with the group, and I'm sure you're going to get a good executive director. I'm positive of that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Fran? Thank you, Fran. So I have, before I go to good of the order, I have executive session, potential litigation. Is that something we're doing today?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the, would we enable we would keep people in the waiting room and remove everyone except the lawyer and board and Fran? Is that, okay?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so let me go to good of the order because we will adjourn from executive session. Is there anything for the good of the order?
For our executive session, we usually go to a breakout room.
We have a problem because I guess Nick's computer died. So I don't know that we have the capability of going to a breakout room at this point.
Wow. Gotcha.
So we'll just have to take a minute and get our security in place.
Yeah,
Okay.
wait for staff. So all staff will leave. Right.
Yeah, Jim, can we adjourn from executive session? Don't we have to come back into regular session? to
We'll
adjourn?
come back into regular session after 20 minutes.
Right.
Oh, I adjourn from executive session all the time. But
Shame on
okay.
Technically,
No,
you go back into regular.
We don't adjourn from executive session, please.
Staff needs to go.
Okay, thanks for your time, guys. Nice seeing you.
Maybe it's just closed session we do that. I know there's a little bit of difference, so.
Little bit.
Okay, so with that, the board will go into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 to discuss potential litigation. We'll do no longer than 20 minutes and we'll return to a public Zoom and adjourn the meeting.